Okay, today is September 23rd, the year 2002, and I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum in California. I'm here in Evansville, Indiana, in the lovely home of George Weigle. George was in the U.S. Army in Europe during World War II, so we're going to talk about that and a lot of other things. Thanks for having me here, George.
You're welcome.
George is the next door neighbor of my mother, as a matter of fact. Tell me, George, when and where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, April 23rd, 1920.
Okay, and what did your father do?
My father was a plumber. He had been in the Navy for 8 years before he married my mother, and worked in a boiler room in a destroyer.
Oh.
So he got his
Was he in
knowledge of plumbing and steam fitting and all that kind of stuff.
Was he in during World War I?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. 8 years during World War I, stationed over in England
Oh, he was.
on a destroyer.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Did they see any action in World War I?
Well, I guess he did, but he never talked about
Yeah, you
it.
never hear too much about the Navy. Well, some of them, but not too much about the Americans, I know.
No.
What was your mother's maiden name, or what was her name?
My mother's name was Elsie Kramer.
Okay, and was she from Brooklyn also?
She was from Brooklyn also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now Weigle, that's
a
your
German
aunt's
name.
German name. Okay.
Yeah, the family came originally from Baden-Baden, Germany, which is it's something like Naples, Florida, or
Water.
money.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
that's where
yeah.
Baden-Baden a lot of money,
Yeah,
gambling, this kind of thing too, see, so.
kind of
That's where they came from, although they didn't have a lot of money, not during Depression anyway.
Yeah. And your mom's folks, where did they come from? Your mother's folks?
Same place,
Oh, they both came from
Germany.
Were they married before they came over here,
Oh no,
or did they know each other over there?
on my grandfather, my dad's parents, they came over here from Germany, and they were married over in Germany, and they came over together. But my mother's father and mother came over here separate and got together.
But if your mom and dad met over, probably they lived in the same neighborhood and
Yeah,
stuff more, because the
pretty
German
much so.
people all kind of lived together, I suppose.
Pretty much so, yeah.
Yeah. So your dad was so when he got out of the Navy, he stayed in the plumbing business?
Then he got married.
Yeah. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have one sister who is, she's still living. She lives in Port Jefferson Station, Long Island.
What's her name?
Isn't it funny when you can't think of it?
No, or just her first
Yeah,
name.
it's Helen. Helen Salatel.
Okay, yeah.
Helen Salatel.
Uh-huh.
And my brother died when he was about 57 years old.
And what was his name?
His name was Robert Weigle. My dad died when he was 65. He had just received about 3 Social Security checks and he passed away.
Yeah.
But he was a strong smoker and he had emphysema, and which got to his heart, killed him.
Now, during the Depression, was he able to work all during the Depression, or
Oh,
what
yes.
was that like for you guys growing
Well,
up?
see, during the Depression, being a plumber didn't help much to make money because people couldn't afford to get anything fixed when they had it broken. Okay? They tried to do it themselves, duct tape, this, you know, you can imagine what it was like, so they couldn't hire a plumber. But then you had the WPA, Works Progress Administration, you had the CCC, which was Civilian Conservation Corps, you had the NYA, which was the National Youth Administration, okay? Those 3 were federally funded, and you could work in either one of them, if you were able, for like 20 hours a week, okay? My dad worked for the WPA, and he was over at the LaGuardia Airport, working there, installing the bathrooms when they were first built the airport,
Oh.
okay? And that was during the Depression. I went to work, when I got graduated from high school in '37, I went to work for the NYA, which was the National Youth Administration, and that was mostly office work. And I worked at the Wage and Hour Administration for the Department of Labor. I worked for the New York State Employment Service. Different places that they could put me, just worked 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Uh-huh.
And while I was working for the NYA, I took the civil service exam for clerk typist, because I did learn typing in school. And I passed that. About a year later, I got called, which was in 1941.
Okay, let's back up just a little bit,
Okay.
because I want to know a little bit about you growing up.
Okay,
Where did you go to grade school?
in Brooklyn,
Yeah, I mean, which one? What's the name of it?
PS 113 in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
okay?
And you were Catholic growing up? You were Catholic at the time?
Yes, but I didn't go to Catholic school. I
Well,
was Catholic, yeah.
What parish did you live in? What do you-
14 Holy Martyrs in Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
It was in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn, okay? That's where
Okay.
I grew up.
How far from Ebbets Field?
Oh, quite a distance, yeah, you had to take the subway to get there.
Uh-huh.
But I was born in Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, okay? Closer to the East River,
Uh-huh.
closer to Manhattan, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, here comes Mama.
Louder, he's still at
Hi, honey.
it. He must really be a windbag, isn't
No,
he?
it just started, honey.
It just
Just
started.
Oh, you just
Let me
started.
turn this.
No,
let me
that's
start-
okay, I'm going in my room.
Well, I want you to join us in a little bit.
Oh,
So I want to
really?
talk to you too. So
Okay,
whenever
now?
you're, well, no, just
Okay.
whenever you're ready. Yeah. Take your time. Okay, the Williamsburg section, did you say at first?
Well,
You were in the Williamsburg section first.
that's where I was born,
That's where you.
Williamsburg section.
Yeah.
And then later on, my parents moved to the Bushwick section of Brooklyn, and that's where I was raised.
Yeah.
Bushwick
And where did
section.
you go to high school?
I went to high school at Franklin K. Lane High School, which was just a block away from where I lived.
Oh.
And I was kind of lucky, though, I guess, in school. I jumped a few classes. So I graduated from high school when I was 16,
Oh.
in January of 1937. And of course,
Is the high school still there? Is
no, it moved out to Long Island, Ridgewood section of Long Island.
it- Yeah.
And they built a new school out there about a year or two after I graduated. My sister did go to that school and she graduated from the new school, okay? She is 2 years younger than I. My brother was 11 years younger than I, okay?
Did you play any sports in school?
I was very good, I don't want to brag a little bit, but I was very good at handball.
Oh.
And I pitched a lot in baseball, but we didn't have much high school sports except handball.
That was a sport in high
That was
school?
the main sport
Really?
in high
I
school.
don't even think they have any. I've never heard of a handball team in any schools around
Oh,
here.
yeah, we had 5 handball, you had 3 doubles teams and 2 singles. And I didn't play on the high school team though, I played a lot of handball though, see? And,
Good with either hand?
yeah, and I'm left-handed,
Oh, yeah.
but I learned to do a lot of things right-handed, as most left-handers do
Yeah.
and have to do
Mhm.
in this world.
Yeah.
So many things are for right-handed people.
And you followed the Dodgers and the Yankees?
Well, the Dodgers and the Yankees, I've seen the best of the Yankees, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig,
Mhm.
Tony Lazzari, Crossetti, Red Ralph, you name them, I've seen them all.
Yeah.
DiMaggio, bunch of them,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And
And I
Did
used
you-
to
which
go
did
to
you like-
Madison
did
Square
you-
Garden a lot.
did you? So
Oh,
the
yeah,
boxing
well, I've seen-
matches?
Ice hockey,
Oh,
quite a
yeah.
bit.
Rangers? Yeah.
Went to see a lot of shows. My buddy, a very close friend of mine that I grew up with. He was always riding off to New York City to get tickets to various radio shows, okay? And when he'd ever get 2 tickets, then he and I would go over by Subway and go watch these radio shows.
Yeah.
Fred Waring show, Fred Allen,
Oh,
all these guys. It was interesting. I had a good life, but didn't have any money, that was the thing.
yeah, but probably nobody else around here
Nobody
probably had
else
much
did
interest
either,
in, so that's what most of the guys say, is that, you know, we're all in the same boat, so you
Right.
didn't really think that you were, you know, any worse off than anybody else.
No,
kind of thing,
no,
right?
we was all in the
Just-
same boat, everything else.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So you graduated,
I
and
graduated in '37.
and what did you do after that?
Then I went to work for the NYA.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I worked in various sections,
All around in New York City, or?
all around over in Manhattan.
Oh,
They were all in Manhattan.
and you lived at home still with your parents?
Oh yeah, I
This
lived at
time?
home until I went in service. Yeah, I lived at home all the time.
So do you remember what you were doing on December 7th, 1941?
Yeah, I just vaguely remember that I was sitting in a car with a couple of the guys that morning after church, and heard about Pearl Harbor, but had no idea where Pearl Harbor was. Didn't know anything about it, you know, so it didn't mean that much to me, but of course it did later on. Then I had to go and sign up for the draft.
Yeah.
I was drafted pretty early, in January of '42.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was drafted early. But prior to that, like I say, I took a clerk typist exam for civil service and passed it. And then in June of '41, yeah, I got called down to the Brooklyn Army base, which was at the New York Port of Embarkation. And they had the Army Transport Service was located there on the piers in Brooklyn, and it's part of the War Department, okay? And got interviewed for a job, civil service job. And there was about 20 of us, and they had 10 jobs, and I was just lucky enough to be picked to work for them. So I went to work for them, and luckily I worked 6.5 months. You had to be working 6 months so you could then become permanent civil service. Okay, that was just temporary for that 6 months, see how well you did. Okay, so I worked for them just 6.5 months, and then right into service. I was called in and drafted in January of '42.
And so you went down to, where'd you have to go? Whitehall? Is that the place that people go in New York to sign up for the service or be drafted?
No, I signed up, I was sent out to Long Island, and I can't remember the name of the camp
Yeah.
that I went to, but it was way out on Long Island by Lake Ronkonkoma, is all I can remember. And I was there about a week, and then I was sent down to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and put in the engineer basic training,
Right.
okay? So I was in engineer basic training until April, and then was sent,
Let's just
sure,
until she gets off the phone. Okay, we're recording again now.
okay.
Okay, so you had gone down
So
to
I'd gone
Virginia.
about Fort Belvoir, and I took my engineer basic training. And then in April, I was sent to Iceland, okay? Before I got to Iceland, when on the ship, I got yellow jaundice. And I was a sick son of a gun. And they took me off the ship. First one to get off the ship when I arrived at Reykjavik, Iceland, and they put me in a hospital. Well, by the time I got out of the hospital and joined my outfit, 5th Engineers, my company that I was assigned to had already gone up to the northern part of the island, up to Akureyri. So I had to wait a while, and then I boarded a British coal boat that was going around the Horn, and it took us 3 days to go around Iceland to get to Akureyri. And when I got there, they said, "Well, I'm so glad to see you. We've been waiting a long time for you." And I thought, Private Weigle, you're waiting for me. This was a company, D company of the whole engineer regiment. You're waiting for me? Yeah, we want you to be company clerk of D company. Company clerk, well, because I had the experience with the war department, okay. So I was with company clerk with D company, and I was up there until, well, it was about May when they put out a list of the cadre that they were gonna send to the States to form a new engineer battalion. And I was then promoted up to a corporal to become the new cadre, the cadre's clerk, okay? Company clerk. So we went down to Reykjavik again by boat, and we stayed down there for about 2 weeks, going through a cadre training. And then we boarded ship and came back to the States. And after we arrived in New York, Staten Island, we went over to Camp Kilman, New Jersey, and then got a 20-day furlough. Came home, I went across to Brooklyn. And after that, then I was to report to Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky. It's right over here at Morganfield, Kentucky. And I came over there and got there on July 26th of 1943. On August 6th, my buddy and I went to a dance that they were having. The outfit next door to us was having a dance in their day room, so we went over to see what we could do. And my buddy asked the gal that was dancing, and we flipped a coin to see who was going to ask her, and he won.
Wasn't me.
So it wasn't her, it was her girlfriend, which we found out later.
And who's her? Let's go see who's her here.
So then I saw this young lady,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, "Would you like to dance?" And she did. And
Now this was at Breckenridge or in Evansville?
at Breckenridge.
Well, how did you get down to Breckenridge?
That was my first trip.
For how old were you?
First trip.
I can't believe your parents let you do that.
Well, my father didn't know it. I had a secret. My mother said I could go, but I could not tell Dad. You know, so
And how old were you then?
20.
20.
No.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, 20, and I was 23.
So you asked her friend to dance.
And I asked her, we danced.
Oh, okay.
And then the four of us got together after the dance for a while and talked. And we did make a date for the next week. And we dated for a long time.
Now how far is Evansville from Breckenridge?
About 30 miles.
I have no idea.
Okay.
About 30 miles.
Yeah. And so you pretty much the whole time you were at Breckenridge, you guys went together and dated and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we got engaged.
Okay.
And,
Christmas Eve.
Oh, is that right? Christmas
Yeah.
Eve of '43.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
excuse what?
Got
We
it.
got engaged Christmas Eve.
Oh, Christmas Eve, yeah. Christmas Eve, 43.
Well, Doc, let's talk about you just a little bit. What was your maiden name? What was your last name?
Millay, M-I-L-L-A-Y.
And you grew up in Evansville?
Yes. Moved over here when I was 10 from Kentucky.
Oh, we're in Kentucky.
Owensboro, which is just
Oh,
across the river.
Right, yeah. And where did you live here in Evansville? What street did you live on?
When we moved here, it was Virginia, and then we moved into St. Benedict's Parish, so I don't even remember the street. We lived on Kentucky Avenue, across the street from the monastery, which isn't there anymore. It's something else now.
And did you go to St. Ben's?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to Memorial to high school?
Yes, Memorial.
Yeah. And what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 1940 from
Uh-huh.
Memorial. Yeah.
And so what did you do after you graduated from Memorial?
Work?
What kind of
Yeah.
work were you doing?
Oh, when I first got out of school, I just worked at Woolworths, and then I went to work for Southern Indiana Gas and Electric Company, which is called Sigoco then.
Yeah.
It's a different one now.
Oh,
And worked until I was married and pregnant. Hard work then in those days, when you got pregnant,
Oh,
you
yeah.
quit.
Right, sure, well, in many ways, that's better, I'm sure. Okay, let's go back to you now and tell me about your Army stuff down in Breckenridge and how long you were there and stuff.
Well, I was in Breckenridge. After I got to Breckenridge, I decided I wanted to be a combat pilot, okay? But when I talked to the officer in charge, my company commander, he said, "I'm sorry, but we can't let you take the aviation cadet exam until we finish training this bunch of new guys that we got in. We were just a cadre, and then we were getting men in all the time, and working with them and get it all developed." So I had to wait until about December or January, I can't remember, one of the two, but anyway, I was then allowed to take the exam, which I did, and I passed it. And then I was transferred out of there. Well, they promoted me then to a sergeant. And then I was transferred out of there to the service company on the post at Breckenridge, and to wait for my orders to be transferred to aviation cadet training. And during that time, they gave me a furlough, and I took my wife, at that time, my fiancée, I took her home to New York with me on a furlough so she could meet my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then while I was there, I got a letter saying, "Come on back, your orders are in." So we had to come back, and then I got transferred down to Shepherd Field, Texas.
And
Which is
what did you think about him going in and maybe being a combat pilot?
I didn't like it.
I wouldn't
But then,
think so.
you know, that's, you know, the decision he had to make.
Right.
If that's what you really want. It's just too bad that he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went down there.
Yeah, then we went through, it was mostly basic training, Air Corps basic training. Of course, that was part of the Army at that time. Now it's separate, Air Force is
Right.
separate, it's the Air Corps.
Right.
And I guess it was about 2 to 3 months after I started that, then the orders came out that 30,000 aviation cadets who haven't completed up to a certain point in their training would be sent back to the ground forces. Well, I came back to, of course I got a furlough at that time, and I came back to Camp Breckenridge and talked to my colonel down there to see if I could get transferred back to my old outfit down at Breckenridge. And he said he was sorry, but he was going from one region to another region, or one corps to another corps, and he couldn't transfer that way. So then I got sent up to Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, outside of Muskogee, and I was put in the infantry then. With that's the 42nd Rainbow Division,
Oh,
which was most popular during World War I.
absolutely.
Captain York,
York.
Sergeant York, and
Yeah.
all that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was in the 42nd Rainbow Division. And I was put in there as a sergeant in the headquarters company at Ammunition and Pioneer Platoon. Well, if you want me to go a little further from that,
Well, okay, the pioneers, tell me again what
it's
pioneers.
more like the engineers,
Oh, that's right.
only up in the front lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You do a lot mines, locate mines, a lot of demolition work, build bridges, build roads, this kind of thing. But you do it all up in the front lines, okay? Whereas you don't have to call on the regular engineers to come up and do it for you.
So combat engineers, basically, combat
Yeah.
engineer.
Right.
Now, are you married yet by this time?
Oh, no,
No, okay.
no, we didn't get married until I got discharged.
Oh, you weren't, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we didn't get married until January of 1946.
I see.
So we were engaged for over 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're there now, is that where you got your orders to go overseas, in Oklahoma?
Yeah. And we got orders to go overseas, and we went to, we left New York and went through the
Okay, let me back up for
Mediterranean up to Marseille.
Let me just back up for just a second. Now, you're engaged.
Mhm.
Had you thought about whether to get married or not to get married, or, I know, some did and some didn't, or,
No,
I mean, it's
I don't
for...
think we
I
really,
don't think we really
we don't-
discussed
we
that.
didn't-
Uh-huh.
no. We figured we'll wait until I come out of the service.
Yeah.
And do it. Oh,
So, okay, so you land in Marseille then?
we landed in Marseille, and of course they have a camp right outside of Marseille where we was all stationed. And you slept in puck tents. They didn't have any barracks or huts or anything like that. And shortly after we got there, this was in December then of 1944, and you had the Battle of the Bulge,
Right.
okay? Now what happened with the Battle of the Bulge, if you can see a map of France, the northern part of France is the 9th Army, then comes the 1st Army, the 3rd Army, the 7th Army. They're all odd numbers. The 5th Army was in Italy, okay, that's the other odd number, okay? So what happened, the Bulge came in at the 1st Army. The 3rd Army, Patton's army, moved up in order to help at the Battle of the Bulge. The 7th Army spread out to cover 3rd Army and 7th Army area, and they needed infantry. Now the only thing is that our infantry was the only thing that went over from our division. The rest of the division stayed back at Camp Gruber.
And this is the 42nd?
Right. The infantry, which was 3 regiments, was sent over to go into the Battle of the Bulge area and take care of that. So we spread out over a great big period of area, and we went right into the front lines on, actually it was Christmas Eve, we went to the front lines.
Rather cold, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, it was a bitter cold winter, very bitter cold winter. And after the Battle of the Bulge,
Which army did you guys go into? Which one of the
7th,
7?
I was in the 7th Army, and it was spread out, very thin, spread out very thin. Was down at the Alsace area, right by Salzburg, not Salzburg, but Strasbourg, France.
Oh, mhm.
Okay, that's the Alsace area. That's where we were all stationed. And after the Bulge failed, and the Germans knew it, they pulled out their best divisions, panzer divisions, panzer meaning tank. They pulled them out and brought them down to hit against the 7th Army to try to retake the Alsace portion of, and take over Strasbourg, which would be great if they did, okay? So we got hit pretty hard. We were spread out so thin that we had to retreat to the Haguenau area, or the Motor River line.
Did you see any of those German tanks? Did they
Oh,
get
yeah.
close enough where you saw them?
Oh yeah, I've been through quite a few of that thing too. So when we got to the Motor River Line is where we set up a defense, and we stopped them there. And then we were relieved by the 101st Airborne.
Right. Yeah.
They came down and relieved us after they'd battled the Bulge. They got
Trucked up
new
to-
replacements, and then they came down and relieved us. And then we were taken out of the front lines, and we joined up with the rest of our division that had just gotten over there. So then we went up into the Heart Mountains in France. We're still in France. Went up to the Heart Mountains, and we relieved the 45th Division. And we stayed there for about good 2 or 3 weeks in a holding position. Excuse me, nobody was moving. It was all pulling up all ammo and men and everything, getting ready for the push, okay? So then on March 15th, we kicked off and went through the mountains and across the Rhine at Worms, France, and then hit Würzburg. And
What was the terrain like you were going through then? Was it pretty rough? Or
yes, it was pretty rough terrain, yeah. We had pretty good battles in Würzburg. They'd been hit pretty hard by the Air Force. And of course, Schweinfurt was the next one that we hit. And that was hit hard because it was a
ball bearing?
ball bearing area of Germany. Right. And then, of course, all the time we was hitting little villages and having our battles here and there. But we went into Nuremberg.
Yeah. Now, were you a rifleman or what?
No, but I did go in and got into some of the battles with the rifle, yeah. I carried a carbine, because a left-hander has a problem with an M1 rifle. It's definitely for a right-handed person. Whereas a carbine is easy to clip and much easier to handle, much lighter. It hasn't got quite the firepower, but still fires a 30 caliber bullet. But I could handle that one, and it was lighter to handle, and I liked it much better. I had a squad. I had my own squad, and I lost three men off my squad. Yeah, one was killed in France, in Sessenheim, France. He was in a house, and a German tank came down and fired an 88 into the house, and he got killed. And then I lost 2 men later on in the mountains. One stepped on a mine, it's a bouncing Betsy, kind of come up and then explode just around the groin area. And he and his buddy, who was also in my squad, was next to him, and they both got killed. So I lost 3 men during the war.
In a squad, what did that consist of? How many guys?
8 men.
8 men. And
Yeah.
you had,
I had a few wounded, and I had one guy who kind of chickened out on me, and started complaining about having rheumatism in his back and all that. And I knew he didn't have any problems. He was just scared. And of course, we were all scared, but he just chickened out, and they took him out completely.
Did you have a BAR in your squad?
No, but I had bazooka.
Oh, you did.
Bazooka.
Now, how did that bazooka do up against the German tanks?
It did pretty good in some areas, but the only thing is that in Sessenheim, when they were coming down with those tanks, didn't have the bazooka with us. So we had no way of battling a German tank with a rifle. And we had to get out.
What about anti-tank guns? Were there any in the area?
We had 2 anti-tank destroyers. Tank destroyers, they called them. 2 of them, and they were occupied by black soldiers, both of them. But their lieutenant was a white man, okay? And we got trapped in there. During the night, Germans came around into the town and with their tanks, we could hear them. And they came around through the woods and area, but we couldn't see them, we could hear them. And they came in and encircled us, came around, and then they attacked at 6 o'clock in the morning with their tanks coming down. And they captured one tank destroyer, and the other one, the tank destroyer pulled out in the street to take a shot at this German tank. Only thing is, the German tank got a shot off first and hit him, and blew it up completely. Killed the guys that were in it, and we had to get out.
So
But
how,
we
if you,
made it out.
you, yeah, how did you get out? I mean, with
Well, we had to go down the street a ways to get away from them, go down the street a ways, and we went into a home, and we had 2 squads from my platoon that was in this battle. The other 2 squads didn't even have to go with us, okay? And I went into the basement of this house and I yelled, "Where's Dirda? Anybody know where Dirda is?" And the lieutenant was upstairs, the 2nd floor, and he yelled down to me, "Dirda is killed." And he was the one that I was telling you got hit by the 88 when it went into the house. Dirda was killed, he said. So I went upstairs, and at that time he had sent the other squad out that told them to go into the woods. There was a wooded area just off to our left, and an open field, cornfield. Okay, it's the middle of the winter now. Okay, well, I was up there with the lieutenant, and he had sent this Sergeant Miller and his squad to go into the woods. We were watching out the back window, and all of a sudden we see him and the squad running through the open field, away from the village, okay? And they were being fired at by the Germans. So he said, "Oh, damn," I said, "I told them to go into the woods." I said, "Now this is where you get real dumb, okay? You don't volunteer when you were in the service. That's a no-no. But here I am, stupid Weigle." I said, "I'll go after him." And I ran downstairs, hopped the fence in the back, and went after him. But when I got out there, they concentrated on me then, riflemen, and they were firing at me. And I had learned, when I was in service, in my basic training, I had learned you don't run in a straight line. So I zigzagged like this. I never did catch up to the squad. They were gone, okay? And I zigzagged, and I could hear them coming by me. And scared, I was scared, but I got far enough away that they couldn't even fire at me anymore. And when I got down, quite a ways down at the open field, I heard my name yelled from the woods area off to my left, and it was my sergeant, platoon sergeant, who was with us too, calling me. And I went off into the woods, and what had happened was Sergeant Miller, when he went into the woods, he heard tanks, and he thought they were German tanks, and he went out into the field. Okay, that's what happened to him. But they were American tanks from our 79th Division coming in ready to attack the village. So
snafu.
we got out.
Situation
I got out
normal.
anyway, and my lieutenant took my squad into the woods, and that's how he found out that it was our own American tanks. So that everybody escaped then. But about a month later, when we was in this holding position, my lieutenant got a hold of me and he said, how would you like to go back to, this was Sessenheim, France. How would you like to go back to Sessenheim and see if we can find the other that we're missing? We were missing a fellow by the name of McMullen and a fellow by the name of Fuller. And of course, Durda was killed. So we drove back in the Jeep, just the two of us. And we knew, we left McMullen, because he was in the house too when they fired the 88 into the house and killed Durda. He was in the other room. And we dragged him out and put him in the barn. And he was hit so bad that we knew he wasn't going to live. And when we left to go down to the other homes, moved down the road a piece, street a piece, through the backyards, he said, "You're not going to leave me, are you?" Oh, that'll tear you up right there. But we did. And when we got to Sessenheim, the lieutenant and I, we found out from a Frenchman that lived there that they had found him and he was dead, and they buried him. Now we knew where Durda was, but the house had burned down on top of Durda. So we started digging in the rubble to see if we could find anything, and we did find his trench knife and his helmet. They were all metal, so they didn't burn. We never did. Durda must have just been ashes. While there, I climbed up on top of that tank destroyer that got hit by the German tank, 88. And you could see the top was all off it, and there's two seats and ashes laying on the seats. And that's what they were. They were the ashes of these burned up black boys. Great. Well, we went out into the field because one of the guys that was still missing, Fuller, was in that other squad, that Miller squad that was running out there first. So we went out in the field and we found Fuller. He was laying there for about a month, okay, but it was winter time, so his body had decayed some. Yes, you wouldn't recognize him naturally. But evidently, when he was running there, he got shot in the heel. And he got out his first aid kit and was trying to bandage his heel when they came up and shot him in the head and killed him. We buried Durda right there. So that was our experience there, so we just came on back to join our outfit again.
Pretty depressing, I guess.
Yeah. So we went on, of course, through Germany, went on from Schweinfurt down to Nuremberg, which was the start of the German Nazi Party. Was started in Nuremberg.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And that's where they had
That's
trials.
where they had the trials too, see.
Yeah.
And we took them to Nuremberg. Is that your wife?
Yeah. Yes, he's going on.
And after Nuremberg, we went on down and got into Dachau concentration camp. And then there's a book here on it. Yeah.
Let me get it a little. Yeah, let me see that. Let me see the front. Just hold it to the front, right? Yeah, up a little bit higher, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was the surrender of Dachau on April 29th.
And that's when. And you were there about that time.
Yeah. And then from there we
Well,
went.
okay. Tell me what that was like. Let's talk a little bit about that, Dachau. What you saw and.
Oh, well, the guys, when we first got there, we weren't the first ones in, okay, because we came in just a little bit later, but they had surrendered. The officers at the camp had left early, because they knew we were coming. They left early and went on into Munich. so they could change clothes and no more, they were civilians, you know, that kind of thing. The rest of them were caught and were held prisoner. And there was about 100 of the prisoners got so excited to get out, they started to climb the fence, which was electrified. So there was about 100 of them were electrocuted. And
Were they all Jewish?
oh no, they had all kinds. In fact, we talked to a Polish boy. A guy, one of the guys with me knew Polish, and he talked to him. And he would say that we told him, "You're free now. You're free." He said, "Free to go where? I have no home. I have no family. I have nothing." It was sad, of course. There were in a siding, railroad siding, right at the camp, was anywhere from 40 to 50 railroad cars. Small 40 and 8 cars, they call them 40 and 8s at that time.
Either 40 men or 8 horses, I believe it was.
That's what it was,
Back in World
yeah,
War
which
One.
came from World War I.
Right.
Right. And these cars came from Buchenwald concentration camp. They were sent down to Dachau, because the Americans were coming into Buchenwald before we ever got to Dachau. They sent them down there and left them at the siding, and they were filled with people.
Dead or alive?
Well, by the time we got there, they were all dead except one. What they had done also was the Germans, before we got there, they machine gunned the cars, make sure they were killing everybody. There was one guy still alive, and got him out. And last I heard, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, he was on radio technician or something like that in Munich.
Oh.
Still alive, working in Munich. He was the only one. The rest of them were all killed. So, well, then we had to leave there and went on to Munich. Well, Munich was nothing really, but by that time the war was just about over, because this was April 29th. The war ended May 8th officially,
Yeah.
but it was pretty well over by that time. And then went on down toward, we were just about at the border of Austria and Germany when the war ended.
I noticed that you got a Bronze Star.
Yes.
What was that
Well, I
circumstance?
told you I'd show you that so you can read it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, sure.
Where's your first year? That's what I want on special duty. That's when it's in Austria. Let's see here. That was the cadre out of Iceland. Oh, that is in here someplace. Oh, come on. Yeah, here. Yeah. Yeah. See, when I got that, I was PFC, but in charge of the squad. But what happened, to make a long story short, I got busted at one time. And I was over in Camp Gruber.
Oh. Yeah.
Then I got my sergeant stripes back again.
Okay, so it says award of the Bronze Star Medal by direction of the President under provisions of the Army Regulations 22 September 1945. The Bronze Star Medal is awarded to George C. Weigle, Sergeant, then Private First Class, Infantry, Headquarters, 1st Battalion, 23rd Infantry, for heroic achievement in action on 16 January 1949 near Sessenheim, France. During an enemy attack on Sessenheim, when communications had been destroyed, Private Weigle left his covered position to attempt to make contact with an adjoining platoon of Company A. Crossing over 100 yards of a far-swept terrain, he established contact which resulted in the two platoons joining forces against the attacking enemy. Private Weigle's courage and aggressive action under fire was an important factor in the successful defense of this sector. Now, is that where you're telling me that you were?
That was another time.
Oh, that was another time. Oh, okay. Well, tell me a little bit more about this particular action.
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were attacking us again at another day.
Did they have tanks that time too? Did they have tanks that time too?
Oh yeah, yeah, they had tanks that time. But we had our whole platoon. We had bazookas. We had everything in that time. But we didn't have enough manpower. But I knew that A Company had a platoon not too far away. So here I go again. Take off like a big bird and running. And I contacted the A Company and we got together. Well, I told them that what we wanted to do was attack them frontal if they will flank. And that helped us because then you divided the German guys up so that they weren't so forceful against one area.
So there was no way to have radio contact with them?
No, because all radio contact was destroyed.
Oh.
And they were destroyed when that first time I was telling you.
Yeah.
We didn't have radio contact with anybody. During the night, at that time then when the tank destroyer got beat up and everything, during the night I was a liaison between the tank destroyer lieutenant, who was living in one house, and we were in another house, and this A Company group was in another house, and I would go taking messages from my lieutenant to them and back and forth all night long. Yeah, so.
So this area says, were you in a town where that action was going on then too?
Right. Yeah. Well, they flanked them from the one side and we got them from frontal. And was able to take them, they took off. So we were lucky.
Okay, so the war ends, and where are you then? You're in Germany?
Yeah, we're just on the border of the Austrian border.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to, we went down to St. Johann in the Tyrolean Alps. And I had a picture of that there in that book. And I was there for about to the end of May when my captain called me on the phone. Well, I was in this, we was all living in homes at the time. Called me on the phone and he said, how would you like to go with me back to Strasbourg, France on temporary duty? Sure, I'll go back with you. So we left the next morning in 2 jeeps. We had another lieutenant, my captain, and 5 enlisted men. and I was the ranking enlisted man, so I had to take care of those other guys. And we left on 2 Jeeps and 2 trailers, and we drove all the way back to Strasbourg. And we set up a convoy control detachment to take care of those from our division that were going to go on furlough. They couldn't go any way but truck, because the railroads were shot up too bad in Germany. So they came by truck all the way to Strasbourg, France, and we took over, our little group took over a vacant hospital just outside of Strasbourg. And they'd bring the trucks, unload the trucks there at the depot, train depot, so they could catch the trains and go to Paris or Marseille or wherever they were going on a furlough. And we would take the trucks out to our area at the hospital and wait till the next day or the 2 days or 3 days later when the guys coming back from furlough, we'd meet them down at the train station again, load them up, send them back to Austria again. So I was there for doing that job for 2 months, June and July of '45. And then that finally ended. All the furloughs were taken care of and all, so we went back, and we went then to Salzburg, Austria. And I joined my platoon again, my squad, and we only stayed overnight, and then we went on down to Bruck, Austria, and about 60 miles south of Salzburg. And there we were Army of Occupation until I got my orders to come home. So.
And you sailed home then?
Hmm?
You come home on a troop ship?
Yeah, but I came home, started home in September from Austria. I was transferred from Bruck, Austria back to Salzburg and joined a tank destroyer battalion, the 802nd, which was being sent back to the States to be deactivated, okay? So anybody who was going to be transferred home to be discharged, they transferred them all into this 802nd Tank Destroyer Battalion, no matter where you came from, okay? So we then went from there. We only stayed a day or 2 in Salzburg, and we went from there to Reims, France, Camp Boston, where they gathered them all together. And then we were supposed to go ahead for home. But then the dock workers on the East Coast, the States, went on strike and stayed on strike for 2 months, and we couldn't move. We had nothing to do, absolutely nothing, for 2 months. So in November, the strike ended, ships came, and I came home on a ship that I knew I'd been on before. It was, when I worked for the War Department in Brooklyn, it was there being worked on to become a troop ship.
I'll be darned.
And I came home on that same ship.
What was the name of that ship?
It was the Edmund B. Alexander, and it had been what they call it? It was a German ship from World War I.
Oh.
And it was over here in the States at the time the war started. We got into the war and we just kept the ship. And they'd used it for, hauling coffee beans from down in South America and all that kind of stuff. So they finally made it into a troop ship. And they were working on that while I was working in Brooklyn then. Yeah. So then we boarded that same ship on the way home.
And you,
I got home then, and right at the 1st of December. I got discharged on December the 5th, and then I came home.
okay, yeah, so I want to talk to Dot here a little bit now. Okay. Okay, so while he's overseas, Oh, are you still working here in,
The gas and electric company.
at the electric company? Did you write letters back and forth very much?
Every day.
Every day is right.
Every day.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wrote me every day. I wrote whenever I had the opportunity, which wasn't too often.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, you know, because you really don't have that much activity going on, you know.
Were you aware of all the danger that he was in
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
Well, being in the infantry,
We
Yeah,
did a
you
lot
knew-
of praying, you know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
when you had neighborhood rosaries and things going on, you did a lot of praying. during
Lighting
World War
candles,
II,
things like
yeah.
that, I guess,
they did some good, didn't they?
They probably did, yeah. They censor your letters a lot that you sent home?
Yeah.
So then, when did you decide, or when did you get married then?
January 10th,
January 10th.
1946,
Uh-huh.
and we were gonna go back to New York, cause he had a job with the War Department, but then he decided to stay here, so.
Yeah, see, I could go back, and I was permanent civil service. I could go back.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But we decided we'd best stay here. She'd be more
Yeah.
comfortable, she'd be happier, she'd be with her family, with her friends. And
So where did you live when you first got married then, here in town?
Well,
well, we lived at your
with
parents'
my
house.
parents, and then he got a job with, civil service in Indianapolis, and we moved to Indianapolis.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. What area of Indianapolis did you live in?
North side,
Broad Ripple.
Broad Ripple? Yeah.
Yeah.
so, but we didn't stay there very long. Had our first child, and then we moved back here.
Okay. And when you moved back here, where did you live then?
Well, back again with my parents until we got an apartment, and,
Where was that?
an apartment?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the first apartment was on Lodge
Lodge.
Avenue,
Lodge.
close to St. Benedict's.
Uh-huh. And then when did you get your first house?
I guess we had 3 kids by then, didn't we, when we got our first house?
Rotherwood, Ravenswood.
Yeah, Ravenswood.
Ravenswood, near Weinbach, we
Bought our first house.
bought a house there, built a house there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we built a